Hello, this is Jeff Parker from Monolith Software. Today I'm going to be taking you through a presentation talking about our single code set solution for technology monitoring and management. So the purpose of today's presentation is to talk about why a solution built on a single code set is important. So if we go back in time to the late 90s and early 2000 timeframe, what you would see is most service providers and large enterprises that have network operations centers would utilize a best-of-breed approach to the implementation of their network operating center software or the management and monitoring software. So an example would be many times in the past we had customers who would use something like Micromuse Netcool for their manager of managers, single pane of glass, something like Nerve Center to allow them to do different correlation options based on the events coming into the system, and then perhaps a system like InfoVista to allow you to go ahead and do the performance management and polling of the various utilization or metric-related information in their environment. So some other concepts regarding solutions today. I mean, what you've seen is you've got these aging framework architectures that are still being sold as new today. And if you look at the time frames, what you'll find is, technology has changed tremendously in the last 20 years ago. 20 years ago, most people didn't have PCs on their desktops, and now look at what's happened. So to think that that software that was developed then is still built in an optimal fashion for today's high-performance needs is, I think, a bit of a misnomer. And then additionally, there's been this concept of acquire versus innovate. So most of the folks we compete with, instead of building the technology in an integrated fashion with a consistent, development approach, interface, backend database, etc., they have acquired all these different technology components. And many times we'll compete against a vendor, and there's 4 different types of databases on the back end, 3 different user interfaces, different entity or device catalog information in each separate module, so instead of using it across the board. So there's been some challenges there. And really what you see is, as a customer, you're delivered with this concept of a very kludged base code set. So if you look at the idea of I may have this for my mom, this for performance management, this for SLM, etc., the idea of unnatural acts of integration, or imagine if you're the guy who has to maintain the plumbing behind this. Very difficult concept for most organizations to get their arms around, because you need all these different skill sets, because it really is like using a different application. In these cases, the big vendor is pretty much acting as a master reseller for all these different technologies. It hasn't been tightly integrated, and that's really what Monolith wanted to address. Last kind of concept in this space I want to get across, imagine if I were to go ahead and challenge you to go ahead and build a robot. But in order to build that robot, you had to do it with equal parts of, Lincoln Logs going back to when you were a child, Legos, wood blocks, these magnetics, erector set components. It's very difficult to go ahead and build something that's going to look good at the end of the day if you have to do that. It'd be much easier if you could do it by utilizing these same components. So in the case of what we're talking about, it's, boy, wouldn't it be nice if we leveraged the same database structure, same programming language, consistent methodology, user interface, etc. So Monolith, we've tried to take a dramatically different approach to this. So what we've done is we've built a single integrated code set using the latest, LAMP or Web 2.0 based technologies. And when we talk about the code, we haven't acquired any companies to get the code. There has been no external code borrowing from like the open source community and putting our sort of wrapper or interface around it. We had a strategy of what we wanted to build, knew what we wanted it to look like, and based on that, have been able to execute on that strategy. Another big concept is, user interface. 10, 15, 20 years ago, the client-server world ruled, and you had all these clients on desktops. Today, everyone is living in much more of a browser-based world. So our application, it doesn't require any signed clients. It doesn't require a specific version of like an IE with a specific Java runtime engine in order to make it work, or ActiveX. It's a pure browser interface, and we don't charge you per client interface, so it's unlimited usage to do what you want with the technology when you want with it. It's accessible from anywhere, so from a user, an admin, or a configuration perspective, as long as you have browser-based access from anywhere in the world to that server, you can go ahead and do what you need to. And we really tried to listen to what our customers were asking for, and the idea was not to have to retroact the way your operational processes work to fit the software. The software should fit in and facilitate how operations worked. And because some of our key architects behind the software came from Knox, where they had to, first they built and ran Knox, and then they went ahead into the consulting world and had to go ahead and deliver software to help other service providers manage their Knox, there's a keen understanding of how this should work. And lastly, we have a very open standards-based approach and an open architecture. So we publish our schema, we have an open API, and it's extremely easy to get the information into and out of Monolith. So what that really leaves us with is, in this industry, we're the only vendor offering a single code set solution addressing what we feel are these core management cornerstones that folks are looking for, which is this idea of a portal-based access or multi-tenancy, availability management, fault management, many different types of correlation, performance management, whether it be for network devices, servers, applications, transactions, etc. Auto discovery, auto mapping, but then on top of that we have the ability to do any sort of real-time dashboarding views as well as service level management calculations on any of that data. And finally, if you look at what we do and what we address as a company, you'll see that in the lower left here, it's the idea of event management. So this is your manager, single pane of glass, centralized event and log management console that lets you take in any feed format. It does the normalization, applies rules logic to it, does all different sorts of correlation behind this, gives you your, your traditional event list views, your gauge-based views, many different filtering options and presentation options, right-click tool integration, etc. In the lower right, you see this idea of performance management. We have something we call Metric Manager that lets you go ahead and basically aggregate, pull, collect any type of metric in your organization. So Metric Manager, a good way to think of that as a metric warehouse. It is the piece that allows you to not only pull any data you want from any sort of devices, as well as we can use our collectors to take in data from third-party systems. Now, why you would do that would be to give you one place to configure things like thresholding, to do consistent graphing, top-end reporting, different ways to zoom into graphs, different ways to see matrix-related information or view any performance-related statistics whatsoever. And then lastly in the middle here is you have our topology manager, which gives us the ability to automatically discover topologies. So out of the box we do the IP-based connectivity for like layer 2, layer 3. But additionally with this HSC you'll see right here we have the hierarchy storage engine, so we can go ahead and correlate based on any type of topology, whether it be IP-based, like a sonnet-based hierarchy you might see in a service provider environment, could be an application-based hierarchy based on a customer-specific internal application they're running, or it could be some sort of service management view you want to track. So at the lower level we have the event, the metric, and the topology and hierarchy-based components, and then at the middle level you have the ability to do all your different sorts of operational level support in terms of bidirectional or unidirectional integration to service desk systems or ticketing systems, the ability to auto-enrich events based on different database instances, platforms, or provisioning systems or CMDBs that you might have, as well as a lot of different options for doing intelligent escalation and notification, virtual operator type functionality to automate actions that people would normally have to manually take. And then at the top you'll see the ability to do any sort of real-time dashboarding view. So via a single browser-based interface that's plug-in free, you can go ahead and view any mixture of event availability, performance, or metric or topology related information in these real-time dashboards that automatically update via their latest status via AJAX to give you real-time indications of what's happening in a view in a manner that's highly impactful. And then in the upper right is the whole service level management, or our SLM engine, which gives you the ability to leverage any of the information in metric management to build and drive any sort of service hierarchy you want. So for example, you may have a global application within your organization which consists of network, server, database, and maybe web components. So the ability to go ahead and build out that service hierarchy, track the metrics and availability behind that, see where you're breaching your SLAs, be able to track and trend that over time, and then create service impacting events so you can go ahead and be aware immediately when you're outside of your different defined service level objectives is a key thing, and a big differentiator there is most of the vendors that we deal with go ahead and do this in a fashion where they have event-driven SLM engines. So the ability of having to wait for an event to go ahead and change a service tree is a bit of a misnomer, because SLM by its very definition is metric driven. So we not only support the traditional event-based, but really most customers are leveraging the whole ability to do metric-based service level management. So hopefully we did a decent job today of explaining to you the whole idea of why a single code set solution as it relates to your technology management and monitoring makes a great deal of sense for your organization. Thank you for your time.